Good morning. Hello, everyone. So glad you're here for our December 11. It's December 11th, 2024. Holy moly. It's hard to believe it's already December. Anyone else feeling that way? It seems like this year has gone so fast. So I'm really glad to be with you. Excuse me. The This time of year can get a little squirrely, I like to say. And I certainly feel the pressure. And if not, I can kind of get numb. Does anyone else feel pressure at this time of year? Or am I the only
I
one?
feel I feel pressured to get out of town.
Ooh.
That's good.
Yeah.
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 The pressure
I was
I
I was thinking
feel,
of Hawaii.
ooh, well, you have friends there, so that sounds good.
Yeah.
Does anyone else feel the pressure? Or is it really a joyful time? And it can be anywhere between, of course. It doesn't have to be one-sided or the other.
It can definitely go that way, feeling the pressure. I'm not feeling it at the moment, which is a great thing.
That's good.
And yeah, just trying to stay in that space of not feeling it, because it can, and also just everything leading into the new year,
Yes.
it's like, oh my God, reflecting on life and what's happening and what's coming up. All of that stuff is like, it can be a lot.
Yeah, I think for me, it's an undercurrent. It's definitely a reflection period. It's also, I think, being divorced, and there's a lot of grief around this time of year and emotion
Mm. Mm.
that kind of can be numbed out by the busyness and the food. Let's call it for what it is. I ate a lot of pumpkin bread around Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I find that the pressure I feel sometimes is the imagery that we receive around the holidays, the way it's supposed to be, the
Hmm.
expectation of what it's supposed to look like. And for a
Hmm.
long time, my life hasn't looked like that. And and I can have moments of complete joy and connection, but those sweeping images that are advertisements, right? They're intentionally sold for us to buy into an image, but they creep in a way. And it takes more of an effort, or it's not even an effort, it takes more of an intention, a deliberate consciousness to not get caught up in that. The sales last week, it was like Black Friday month, it was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
on
Black
and
Friday,
on.
Orange Tuesday,
There were so many things.
Purple Wednesday. Yeah.
And so I was really mindful of getting only things I needed that I could get at a lower price, like a new oven, things like that made sense to buy then. And it can start to feel a little overwhelming too, like I'm missing on something, or and there are different people I talk to who have different relationships with the sales. You know, there are people with spreadsheets. There are people who don't do anything, and there's everything in between. So, does anyone who feels any of that energetically or literally, figuratively? Do you feel that kind of race to the end of the year, shop, 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 buy, buy, buy kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Several years ago, I wrote a talk called something something holidays, Holidaze,
Yeah.
and it was 10 things to look out for. And now I don't remember the details of the talk, and I should probably search the computer because I might have it written somewhere. But the word reminds me there. Like I wanted a tree. I really don't have any tree. Um, and I don't see the tree six like I'm used to seeing, where I lived before, where I was familiar with. So maybe I won't have, maybe I'll just have a poinsettia, which is fine. But it's funny now I'm starting to think, okay, what are we, 15 days away? Yeah, less than that. And you still don't have a tree? So I'm kind of falling into that holidays where you just get crazy about all the things you want to give. And I try not to expect much, but I usually buy something for myself.
Very good planning. You won't be disappointed.
Right.
Exactly. I know I'll get something that I want, but
Exactly.
I don't need to spend that money.
Right.
No, it's just it's like I said, holidays. I just keep that mind that in my head, and I try not to fall into that. But I know it's easy.
Right. Beautiful. I love holidays, DAZE. That's exactly what we're talking about today. Thank you for sharing that. It's an ideal way to describe the checking out piece of
Yeah.
it. Yeah. And and I do think there's a benefit when we check out because then we do just click buy a lot more. It's easy
Mhm.
to click buy when we're checked
Did
out.
you see there's something on Netflix. It's called Buy It, I think.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, when you watch that, realize how they have conditioned us and they continue to program us to just click buy in
Yes.
this online shopping world. I would recommend that to everybody
Hmm.
just to, like, oh, I thought it was just me, you know?
Right. No, it's actually a manipulation, an intentional
Yeah.
manipulation. And having worked in sustainable fashion for the last 15 years or
Mhm.
so, we were aware of this a long time ago, but it's gotten so much worse. It's not
Yeah.
gotten better. And the overproduction of resource intense product is at dangerous levels. It's so much waste. I think it's like a trash truck every 2 seconds, the Ellen MacArthur says, of wasted textiles and clothing. We're
Hmm.
overproducing so much. Every second, it's going to the landfill or getting incinerated. That's just too much. But it comes from, I don't, the documentary I have heard about that and I really want to see that. I appreciate you bringing that up. Because when we're talking about values, living our values here, and the antidote to the holidays, DAZE, which is a perfect term, or the overconsumption that we get fueled to believe we need, is being really clear about what our values are. And it's not so much they will help us stop clicking buy. They will not in a direct way, but more in a nuanced way, which is because sometimes people think, oh, my values, I'm going to buy this because it's more in alignment with my values than that. But what a values-based life does, it gives us that pause. It gives us that opportunity to check in and say, is this really something that I need? Where is this coming from? Is it an external manipulation? Or do I really want that adventure? So I'm going to take that trip. So I want my resources to go there rather than this really cool thing that I think I need for whatever reason, because it's the latest thing. It gives us the sovereignty at a time when there is algorithms and things from the outside tend to tell us what we need. And it helps us connect us back to ourselves. So it's not about doing anything perfectly or right, but it's about being in alignment. Because when we shop or go to a party or engage with others at work or in any situation, when we're in alignment, we know, right? We know we're in alignment. Why? How do we know we're in alignment, do you think? Yeah.
Yes, we feel good.
You
Because
feel
we feel
good.
good. Yeah, it feels good. You're like, I enjoyed this conversation, or oh, I did buy something on Black Friday, but it's in alignment with my values.
Hmm.
It's being able to discern and be sovereign in our actions. Sharice, are you gonna say something?
Holidays are a little different for me. And I just lost my brother, so and
Oh.
um
Hmm.
the holidays, it's inevitable people are gonna go, but there's just something about the holidays where you know somebody who knows somebody who just lost somebody.
Mhm.
And I used to get all caught up with the buying frenzy, but I have Christmas isn't Christmas just ain't Christmas. Yeah, it's not the same anymore as when I was younger. We don't have the young kids in the family to cater to and do the whole Santa Claus and surprising thing. All of our family is pretty much adults now. And now that my mom is not mentally all there, we don't go all out as we would normally for her birthday as we do, because she used to be the master chef who would prepare a big spread. But now we've kind of turned that into, since no, she's not cooking anymore, we all just decided it would be easier to go out to dinner for Christmas.
Mm,
So, and I think that's been our ritual the past couple years, and everybody's on board with that because everybody's happy they don't have to do pots and pans and pack up
right.
leftovers to go. So,
Right. Yeah.
but I like I said, I used to get caught up in the frenzy of buying the gifts, but uh, Christmas has a whole different meaning to me now. So I don't look at it the way I still love the Christmas carols, but I've kind of looked at it as in a different aspect now.
I feel that, and thank you for sharing. I'm so sorry for your loss, that deep, deep loss. And the holiday grief is a powerful time, or the holidays can bring up grief in this powerful way.
Hmm.
I lost my dad 12 years ago, right around Thanksgiving, November 26th, and his birthday is December 2nd. So the holidays start off for that way for me. And then the grief. So I really relate to things just feeling different.
Hmm.
And and that's where also that expectation of the advertisements, when you don't match that, it feels
Yeah.
like you can't have your own holiday.
It's a bummer. It's a bummer, but the true thing is just not to get caught up into the hype. You know,
Correct.
holidays mean a lot of different things for different people. But Hollywood is so good on selling an image.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And that's the expectations of what it's supposed to be and what you're supposed to feel on Christmas,
Mhm.
even New Year's or Thanksgiving can be painful because it's an added level of grief to your loss.
Also, I mean, and for that, not just for the grieving aspect, it's an added level of stress. I was just talking with my sister and my brother-in-law just yesterday, how because they don't celebrate Christmas at all. They think it's a pagan holiday, which I kind of, to some extent, I do agree. But it's she says, I feel so much freer now. I don't feel so stressed by having to hurry up and go get presents for people who may not even like what I get.
Right.
So she's like, I kind of, and it's funny because everybody always knew my sister for being the person who came with the gifts that is for home safety. You can always bet you'll get something that is going to be something that'll be work during an earthquake or a fire.
That's a good way to be known. I like that. Like, here's the
Right.
flashlight.
Everybody always knew that they was going to get something for safety, emergency equipment, some type of from her. But it's funny because she said she thought that she kind of felt resentful that she had to go buy gifts for everybody. And she was like, well, to the point that they may not like it, but she said at the same time she turned it around to what can a person need or use
Yes.
during a time of an emergency. So she's turned it around that way, and started buying everybody like emergency lights that plug in the wall, or a flashlight, or something of that nature. So
Yes.
she said, since we stopped celebrating Christmas, she says, I feel so much freer. I don't have that added stress of trying
Yes.
to get everybody gifts.
Yeah. And
So I mean, the
yeah.
holidays do bring on a certain amount of stress for those people who are into the gift giving.
Yeah. That's why that to-do list gets longer. And then expectations of people. There's so many expectations, I think it's kind of what you're talking about too.
Hmm.
But not everybody's, I mean, I'm Jewish, so we never celebrated Christmas growing up. I never had a Christmas tree. I always felt left out, sort of, like not part of something. But as a family, we used to go away leave on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Either we go to the movies Christmas Eve and have Chinese food because they were always open. That's the thing. And then we would like travel on Christmas Day, which was always like cheap flights and a good day to travel and like, go hang out in Mexico or something like that, which was fun as a family to do. But it was because we just weren't a part of. Now it's become much more, like you said, kind of secular. It's more about the external.
Hmm.
But to me, what I love around this time of year, and this is where it aligns with like getting back to the values can help us like carve our way through all of this to know which parts resonate or not. So I love the lights, and it's a really internal time for me. It's time where I tend to like reflect on the year, reflect on where I want to go. I want to go to bed early. Half the time the parties, I'm like, they're too late. Like I like getting into bed before 10 o'clock or 10 or at 10. Last night it was a little later. But the idea of getting into bed. I know your hours are crazy, so that sounds funny to you, Sheree. But thinking about that of this time of year, it's dark early, it's
Hmm.
candles, I'm probably a little bit, I'm an introvert that likes to be social, but only with limits. So it's a time that can be super stressful if we don't have something we can rely on, which is why I call the values a bridge. They bridge us, take us out into the world. They help bring us to the world that we want to engage in a way that feels authentic to us.
Mhm. Mhm.
And at the same time, if we find ourselves out at a party having, one more conversation about, so what do you do? Which is always, how do I explain what I do? I don't know. To someone who doesn't really probably very interested, but just asking questions to see if I'm useful to them.
Uh-huh.
And, I can use my values to show up differently, to be curious about them, to answer with kindness and honesty. But moving away from that kind of the superficial conversation starts, I get to, that tires me out way more than a real conversation. And my values hold the key to how to show up differently or to even want to show up at all. So, it's easy to watch a great movie. I'm like, oh, great. I'll see you watch a movie about consumption on Netflix. Come, you know, buy it. Is it buy in? I think it's called, or buy back. It's buy in. Yeah. So, but not, but it's true. Not everybody celebrates the holidays, and some they celebrate it in different ways.
Hmm.
And if you look out in the world in the ads on my social media and out, it doesn't look like that. It looks like everybody's kind of,
Right.
chasing the same goal.
Let me share something. One of the things
Sure.
my mother used to say when we were younger, because we had renters in our house, and she would say something like, Go and spend as much money as you want, but your rent is still due on January 1st." And so it's like, oh, and at first, you're a kid, you're like, why is she saying that? But now as an adult, I so get it because all of these sales, you're just buying into your debt, really. You're building up your debt, and your bills will come due on January 1st. And they
Yeah.
don't care. They know it was Christmas, but
Pay up. Yep.
yeah.
It's
So
true.
I repeat that phrase to myself whenever I'm like, can I get this? Okay. January 1st will be here before you know it.
Yeah, it is. But it's too many. I've been there before where there is the days that we get through the holidays, whether
Yeah.
it's we want to look great at a party, so we need to get the dress or the lipstick or
Yeah.
you know, the hair done. No, nothing wrong with any of it, but being conscious of those choices that we have and that we have a choice in it. So I would love to hear from each of you one value you have that will help that you can use this holiday season and how that could potentially help you. And so one value, you can do two if you really want. Well, let's do one, little different rounds. Let's do one the first round, see how much time we have. And one way that you can use the value that you either want to use it in or haven't used it in, just how you can connect a behavior or an action or something, or to help you make a decision, something like that.
Well, I'll start. I have this value of connection, and I seem to be wasting it on Facebook every day. And I have started limiting myself, but even that hasn't worked. I had said 15 minutes a day, and it didn't work. But so now I'm just not going to look.
Mm.
But connection. So I've started out with connecting with some friends here. Long time friend has moved in with us. He's 85, and uh, he's just making a big difference in our lives here. He's a very generous spirit. Um, and I
Mm.
I have this idea to go to Hawaii to be with some friends. And last time I went, 2 years ago, I went to all their parties with them, and I didn't know anybody, and so it was kind of a freedom to just sort of wind my way through different people, um, and people I visited and made cookies with and had Hanukkah with have died, and this year it feels I really feel that missing of friends who have died who were a big part of my social life. And um, so I'm going to make it up as I go.
Mm.
That's beautiful. And I love where you started, right? Where you talked about connection
Yeah.
and recognizing you're looking for it on Facebook, and you can get a hit of it, a momentary hit of a connection, like, oh, so and so liked my thing, or oh, I like checking in or wishing so and so a happy birthday, all of that kind of stuff. There are positives about social media.
Yeah,
It can go down, but it's not really the connection you're probably really looking for. And so
right.
what I hear is you're opening up to these other ways. And and the thing is when you start to think about connection, loss comes up. People we've been had connection with, and then there are new connections that arise, but our connection can hold all of that. The connection of the memories, the connection of spirit, the connection of with yourself, you know.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah, connection has become quite a fulcrum of this part of my life, because I had a classroom of 30 people, new people every 10 weeks for 20 years. It was a kind of an artificial social life.
Mhm.
Um, and because I was teaching English, everything turned into a conversation.
Right.
And so it seemed pretty clear that it was a lot of connection, but it wasn't a lasting connection,
Mm.
which I think there's so many kinds of connection.
Right. Right. Which is important to write why we write the definitions of our values, right? To know what you're talking about when you think about connection and
Yeah.
appreciating those different ones. Thank you, Terry. Christine,
Mhm.
Cherise, Sheila, who would like to go next?
Okay.
Great.
Excuse me. So I'm going to stick with my primary value of self-care. And I think during the holidays, it is going to be important to pay attention to my health self-care things. So last Saturday, I delivered my soul care experience. Which, oh my gosh, it was so much daggone work. I'm just gonna be blunt. I think that the participants received what they got very well. They liked it. Um, but I was so tired when I left. I said, I wish somebody would invite me to an event like this. It's all the work you have to do in the background that just it wore me out. And then I find myself congested again and coughing again. So for the remainder of this year, I'm not going to play with self-care. I am going to make sure that I take care of my health, that I drink enough water, that I rest enough, because sometimes when we're always trying to do for others or give to others, you neglect yourself.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so that's what I will say. I can say I observed having put together this event because I put a lot in, but Christine, you have to breathe too.
Right.
And so,
Mm.
yeah, so self-care for the
Yeah.
rest of the year will be important to me.
It's so it's so important, right? The airplanes, they tell us to put the oxygen mask on ourselves
Yes.
before helping the children. And I know that, and I'll
Yeah.
still choose otherwise
Yes.
in the moment. I'll remember and then I'll, of course, correct. But to be able to really stay healthy and to do that is a good reminder. And my hope is that, committing here to it, putting in front of mind, speaking it out loud, and coming from the values place as opposed to I have to do this, it's different because the values connect us to that part of us inside,
Mhm.
to that kind of the perfection of us as humans, of who we are, and that self-care takes on a whole other level of of intention, of meaning, of satisfaction even, right? Because it's not just like, oh, I'm checking off a list of drinking enough water. It's an intentional way, it's an inspired way of living by choosing self-care in the way that you're talking about it. And recognizing, right, that you put on this incredible event, congratulations. And there was a cost to that. And how can you do that without the cost so that you can care for yourself and show up for others too? And that, they're the good, that's an important, I've had to challenge those myself with that often.
Hmm.
So we'll have plenty of time to think, talk about that as we get to the new year and start thinking about, okay, what does this year look like?
Yeah.
Right. Sheila.
I want to say congratulations, Christine.
Thank
So
you.
that's an amazing thing to do. And yeah, that the whole self-care thing, just being mindful of that. It's like, because sometimes I find that I give more, like when I think about compassion, I have so much compassion for others and sometimes not enough for myself. So it's like reflecting it back. It's like, okay, so you deserve the same kind of grace and breaks and just that gentleness that I so often give to other people. I was thinking about my value of I have a value of curiosity, wonder, and joy. And this seems like a really great time of the year to amplify that and to really like lean into that value. The curiosity part just kind of helps me to stay. I think I've just been thinking about just being more open. I don't feel any pressure right now around the holidays, and that feels amazing. Just like so grateful. So grateful to not feel the pressure. But I want to like, what is this moment? I mean, what is the thing that like the best thing that I can do in this moment, or the most, I don't know, helpful, or the whatever. It's just kind of like being in the moment and figuring out without coming in with expectations about it, because I find that my best holidays are when I don't have the expectations about how things should be.
Mm.
Like having gone through so many different iterations with my family around traditions and what we're doing. There was a time when I would go to movies, every year, top off the holiday dinner with movies and like, need to exit at a certain time from holiday gatherings because then they would like kind of like start to implode, and it's like, okay, plan is to go to the movies and I would do this movie thing every year, which really helped a lot. And then didn't feel the need to do that. And I love the whole thing, Charisse, about like going out to dinner. It's like, oh, and I got curious about that. It's like, what would it be? And maybe I'll like introduce that because there's just a few of us that are gathering for Christmas. And so maybe it would be kind of cool to like, yeah, let's go out to eat this year. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
Like trying on different traditions because it's like there's certain things that I always thought, okay, now if I can have these experiences, the holidays are fantastic. So I like to see my lights. I like to see lights because that's like it just gets me really excited. The music is really a lot of fun. The lights, music, um, the scent of pine is really incredible. I don't have that experience right now, but I used to like just get like a wreath or something, or go to one of those tree lots and get something that gives me that pine scent because that's like, ooh, that's so special. And a lot of times, like cookie decorating has always been a fun thing, or baking. It's like, ooh, when I do all those things, I feel like, all right, my holiday's complete. So just thinking about weaving some of those things in. I haven't done too much of that. My sister came over the other day and brought a few holiday decorations for me because I don't just a few little tiny things that look like Christmas, but not so much that I feel overwhelmed with it. And it's not all over the place because then I think that starts to bring some of the like the sense of like, oh, it's got to be a certain way. No, it really doesn't. So I'm really trying to lean into the joyful aspect of it, the connections. When Terry, you were talking about connections, there's a couple of people that, I think I would make the holidays really great if I actually reached out to them because I
Mm.
haven't been in touch. And so that would be kind of special. Or maybe like there's one sister that I don't talk to very often, but just kind of like, we chat, sometimes and just email, text messages and things like that. But just to like to have a great conversation. She's in Reno, and make that the thing.
Hmm.
So it's all about how I feel. It's going back to the feelings. Like, what are the things that are bringing that sense of joy? Where can I find the wonder? What can I be curious about? And just kind of like in this moment, I'd love to get invited to a holiday party. That's not something that's like I'm thinking about. I gotta like dress up for this, So it'll just kind of like it'll like just the days will go, and then it's suddenly I'll be at my sister's and we're doing Christmas, but just finding ways to make it special because I don't have a lot of traditions anymore. I used to have a lot of rituals and traditions around the holidays, and those fall away as people move on, and just finding those things that make it feel special, special in my heart. That's what I want to kind of connect with. So I think leaning into that value of curiosity, wonder, and joy will help me get there.
Hmm. Absolutely. That's what I hear in everything you said. I heard being curious to see things differently, being curious of how to change traditions, right? There's something wonderful about traditions, and then
Mhm.
sometimes it's a time for change, a time to do something different, and be
Right.
curious about that. How do you retain some of it, but up level it or transform it
Mhm.
in a new way?
Then there's not that sense of disappointment, or it's like it should have
Correct.
been this way, or it's, I
Right.
need it to be this way for it to be good. No, not so much. Yeah, so that
Yeah,
really
and
does.
that's where that value can kind of come in and transform
Hmm.
and like change that, right? It goes from expectation or should to wait, I'm going to be curious. I'm going to walk in through this holiday with curiosity, with wonder, with joy. Not because I have to or it's an expectation, but because those things matter to me. And I lead with curiosity, then I'm open. Like you start saying,
Hmm.
I'm open to experiencing something different. I'm open to going out to dinner. I'm open to have a new experience with the holidays and with myself at the holidays. And that is what kind of elevates it from I should be this way. I should not get buy into expectations into like, oh, it's more affirmative. It's directional in that regard.
Hmm.
Because you know this value, you have this value, it's part of you. You can apply it in other things too. So when you can suddenly take it from that into this, and the ideas I hear just flowing from you.
Hmm.
And that's super exciting.
Hmm.
Thank you. Sheree?
Yeah, I think to touch on a little bit what Sheila talked about, I find that, oh,
Which value do you think
the
are you?
value that I am probably be more in tune with is compassion. And for that matter, a segue off of what Christine uh, presented, I was one of the ladies who experienced the soul care experience with Christine's event, and I got a lot out of the event, but what I got out of the event that made that pinpoint and hit the nail on the head is prioritizing me and putting me first, because I'm such a giving person. I would give I would give my last to help the next person, but I always put myself last. And I think with the value of compassion, I believe that I will be able to turn some of that compassion towards myself
Hmm.
and look at myself and give myself grace and give myself a pat on the back for all that I'm doing, not just for my mom, but for others. But don't forget to prioritize me. and put me first. Have some compassion, do stuff for me.
Yes. That's so beautiful. And the self-compassion is key. Often when you hear compassion, we think of it as something outward going, like we need to be compassionate to others. But this is where the values really show us that bridge. It's both ways. And
Hmm.
sometimes values seem like they're just externally, but it's actually what's the internal version of that, right? So the internal version of compassion is self-compassion, self-care. And we talked about with Christine too, once you can do that, you can then bring a more balanced compassion to others where rather than overextending yourself. And I hear that, and I hear depth in that too, right? Because when you're going through whether it's grief or just new ways of the holidays, like your mom's role is different now. There's grief around that, I would imagine.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, and there's also joy because you're all going to have dinner at a restaurant and it's a different kind of thing. But
Yeah.
being able to be compassionate of self to handle multiple feelings at the same time, right?
Hmm.
You can feel grief and joy at the exact same moment. I certainly have.
Mhm. Mhm.
And also then bringing compassion to others too, recognizing your sister doesn't celebrate the holiday in the same way before. So you're able to see that better. And instead of like overriding yourself, like you said, you're starting with yourself. And there's just ease. And I feel calm just hearing that, don't you?
Hmm. Yeah,
Mhm.
certainly.
Mhm.
And when people say they have a value of compassion, oftentimes you think it's about other people initially, right? The culture out there will prioritize compassion towards others.
Yeah, but I think it's I've done a lot of self-reflection, and I'm really ready to put myself first,
Mhm.
because I've always been last. I've
Right.
always been putting myself last.
And that's why it's so stunningly beautiful to hear that. And I hear lightness in your voice and ease in your voice and confidence in your voice
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
knowing that. And why I ask for that inner and outer version of a value, because they do go both ways
Hmm.
in terms of their expression.
Mhm.
So with Terry, connection, it's connection with self to be able to be connected with others, right? Connecting with self. Self-care, certainly about self-care here, but then it's also bringing that, for Christine, bringing that care to others. If you're, but doing it in a way that is authentic to you. Sheila, curiosity, wonder, and joy towards herself and her own experiences and what she's feeling, but also bringing that to the experiences with her family and the movies, and then compassion towards oneself to be able to then have compassion elsewhere, also outward with others. So that's when I say values are a bridge between our inner self and our outer self. That's how it goes. It's like a two-way street.
Mhm. What
And
about for you, Amy?
for me,
Mhm.
I've been curious about my value of creativity is the one I want to lead with for this month. I went to the Broad Museum over the weekend
Mhm.
with a friend who was in town, which I wouldn't have done if she wasn't here. I was like, I got tickets, let's go. And so we went, and it was great to be in an art with art. It was great to be with art and the contemplating the messages of the art, what they're saying, all of that. And then we went to Highland Park and walked around a new area. So to me, doing new things,
Mhm.
it's part of my value of creativity. I also like to write during this time and be more internal. So I want to make sure I make time to play and be creative with cutting out images and looking at images and seeing things that are beautiful, my vision, dancing, all of that stuff. Now, I just realized this too. My definition for creativity is also about holding two seemingly opposing ideas at the same time, which I just said, right? So it's both joy and grief in the moment. So that is my definition of creativity is that you can have two seemingly opposing ideas at the same time. You can have joy and grief, you can have style and substance, you can have all sorts of things that seem like they're opposite, but they're not. They're just coexisting. That seems to be a good way to walk through the holidays and to navigate the
Mhm.
holidays. Because so many times I missed my children and being with them for the holidays, and I loved the time with myself. Like, and both were authentically true to me. It wouldn't have been right to say one without the other. And I didn't always articulate that, but the truth was that sometimes I did want to be at the party and at home, like, so how can I leave early or go to the movie or, say no if I really don't want to attend? So I didn't realize that until I had just said that, but that kind of furthers and solidifies how I want to walk through with my value of creativity and hopefully paint and write and really express how I'm feeling in the moment and
Mhm.
have some fun because it also
Mhm.
is about play and having fun.
Mhm. Yeah, it made me think about when you were saying that about just about the value of creative living, because it really is about
Mm.
how you're living, how you're choosing to live
Yeah.
in kind of an unbounded, unstructured. I mean, so it's like not getting sucked into being in this little box or this definition, but just expanding it and having the duality of it, right? The opposites, the
Yes.
coexistence of many things in one time, but finding a creative way of engaging in that brings
Yeah.
you peace and joy and like feeds
It
you.
does. It does. Yeah, because I don't really call myself an artist. That doesn't really, as a label, feel right. But I live a creative life.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's what I've said. So I appreciate you reflecting that back because that's how it feels. I'll do
Hmm.
those things, but as soon as you
Hmm.
keep a label on it, I'm like, I'm not good enough. I got, like I'm out. I can't draw a horse. I'm out. Somehow, when I was a
Right.
kid, drawing a horse was the symbol of being creative, but it's not.
But that's also part of the creative living too, is just like not allowing those labels,
You're right.
those constraints to really be the thing that moves you, right? Moves you forward. It's like just like saying no to that and just expanding. It's all this expansion in that, which is
Yeah.
really powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I see that for all the values that we talked about today for each of
Mhm.
you. It really is an expansive way of seeing the holidays and taking it from kind of a narrow view, which is kind of where we started, and really being able to hold all of it together,
Mhm.
for ourselves and for others in a way, because we're coming from a values-based place. We're owning it. We're owning our sovereignty, really. We're owning our ability to not get into the days. I love that. The holidays, you know. And it is a time of reflection. It is a time. I do an annual values review or an annual review with the values lens, and we need the space and time to do that. Because usually it's like the lean up, the run up to Christmas, and then okay, then the last week is the New Year and Sheila's birthday. You know? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's really cool.
yeah. And to that point with the annual review, I am finishing up I've done it before, but I'm updating it, a document, like a guide. It's a guide basically to do an annual review. If And if you want me to send you one, let me know, and I will, once it's done, I'll email it to you.
Yeah, I
I'd
would.
like that.
It's a great way to do it values-based. So it's,
And I'm about to meet with all the people who live in my house because I've never had long-term people living with me, and now it's all long-term.
oh,
And
wow.
I'm designing a rental agreement, and I was thinking of how to break into the meeting we're going to have on Saturday to say, I realize I'm shaking the boat by putting something on paper because we just have all these verbal agreements, and I'm ready for it to be on paper. And I think that's gonna, shake it up a little bit. But I'm gonna say, there are two opposing ideas that are having to be held here, that we love each other, we trust each other, and I'm asking you to put it on paper. And
Yeah.
that's going to have to be how it is because I'm the owner of the house. My husband and I are the owners of the house. And we are risking everything by having, well, in fact, Americans in the house, because Americans are the only people who threaten you with a lawsuit. So I want it all on paper.
And to your point too, right? It's holding a couple different ideas at once, but also your value of connection to
Yeah.
maintain your connections with them in a way that matters to you, having an agreement and I rent my back house, so I'm happy to chat with you about it. Hmm?
And you have them sign a rental agreement.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you send it to me
Sure. Of course.
so I can see it?
Yeah.
If anybody has a rental agreement that
Yeah.
you have people sign, I would love to see it.
Yeah. I will absolutely send it to you. And you
Okay.
want the annual review too, right? Or no?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
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 Does everybody want
Yeah.
that? I'm happy to send it to all of
Yes.
you if you do. If you
Yes.
don't, no biggie. Just let me know.
No, it's funny. I just want to add something. When you said the annual review, I started thinking about all the people that say they want to do vision boards for next year. But you got to review what did you do last year? You got to review what worked last time you did this vision board and what did you ignore. So the
Exactly.
time for reflection is very important.
Yeah, I agree. And the guide takes you to set, through that process, the reflection,
Okay.
kind of assessment, and then to set smarter goals for the next year that
Okay.
are values based as opposed to externally based. So that's the idea of it.
And I've got to go in another meeting that starts at 12. But
Yeah, me too.
thank you all and have such a
Happy
wonderful
holidays.
Happy
holiday
holidays.
season.
So lovely to see you all.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
so
coming.
much. Happy
Bye.
holidays to
Happy
you all.
holidays.
Happy holidays.
It's been great. Thank you.
Okay.